Welcome to today's video where we'll dive deep into the political crisis that unfolded in Bangladesh in 2024. This isn't just a story of internal unrest, but one that intertwines with the interests of global powers, making it a far more complex and intriguing situation. We will explore the role of India, Pakistan, China, and the United States, and how these nations, along with the CIA, became part of this crisis, either directly or indirectly. In 2024, Bangladesh was rocked by an unprecedented political crisis, leading to the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina after over 15 years in power. The situation was initially sparked by internal dissatisfaction, particularly with the reinstatement of a divisive quota system for government jobs. But as we'll see, the crisis quickly became entangled with the geopolitical interests of several powerful nations. It all began when, in June 2024, the Supreme Court of Bangladesh reinstated the controversial quota system, reserving 30% of government jobs for descendants of those who fought in the 1971 War of Independence. This decision sparked outrage, particularly among students and younger generations who saw it as a setback for merit-based recruitment. The protests grew larger, and the government's violent crackdown on demonstrators led to widespread unrest, culminating in what many called the July Massacre. While this was an internal issue for Bangladesh, its global implications became clear as major powers took sides. Let's start with India, Bangladesh's powerful neighbor and historical ally. India had supported Bangladesh's independence in 1971 during the Liberation War and has remained a key player in the region ever since. In 2024, as protests grew and the government fell, India found itself drawn into the situation. New Delhi voiced support for the interim government under Dr. Muhammad Yunus, seeing it as a potential move towards stability. However, India also had concerns about the rising influence of China in Bangladesh, especially in terms of economic investments and military presence. China, Bangladesh's growing economic partner, indirectly played a significant role in the crisis. As China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) expanded into Bangladesh, Chinese companies began investing heavily in the nation's infrastructure, including energy projects and the construction of roads and bridges. Many analysts suggest that China, with its interests in maintaining strong economic ties, had quietly supported Sheikh Hasina's government, hoping that continuity would preserve favorable economic policies. However, as Hasina's grip on power weakened, China's strategy shifted. The Chinese government, while careful to avoid direct interference, became wary of the power vacuum and the potential rise of an interim government that could be less favorable to their interests. Then there's Pakistan, Bangladesh's historical adversary. While Pakistan didn't directly intervene in the 2024 crisis, its presence was felt in the political landscape. Pakistan's military and intelligence agencies have long maintained ties with various factions in Bangladesh, and some reports suggest that Pakistan's intelligence services were quietly involved in fomenting unrest, hoping to destabilize the current government. These actions were seen as part of a broader strategy to weaken Bangladesh's democratic institutions, particularly in the face of growing Indian influence in the region. Pakistani operatives were rumored to have provided support to groups that were critical of Hasina's administration, though the full extent of their involvement remains unclear. Now let's turn to the United States, a global superpower with its own interests in Bangladesh. The U.S. has often been vocal in its support for democracy and human rights, but its position in the 2024 crisis was a balancing act. The U.S. government initially expressed concern about the violence against protesters, urging for a peaceful resolution and democratic reforms. However, the U.S. also maintained a strategic interest in keeping Bangladesh from falling further under China's sphere of influence. As the situation became more dire, the U.S. increased its diplomatic engagement with the interim government, offering support for their efforts to stabilize the nation and ensure a democratic election. Yet, many wondered if the U.S. had other motivations, such as securing favorable trade deals and curbing China's growing presence in the region. But perhaps the most intriguing involvement comes from the CIA, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. While the U.S. government publicly positioned itself as a neutral party, some sources suggest that the CIA was quietly active behind the scenes. The CIA's interest in Bangladesh stems from its geopolitical importance in South Asia and the broader contest for influence between the US and China. Reports indicated that the CIA had been monitoring the unrest closely and was even involved in discreet meetings with key figures in the interim government. The aim, according to these reports, was to ensure that the transition would not lead to a government too closely aligned with China or Pakistan, both of which posed strategic challenges to U.S. interests in the region. The CIA's potential involvement in supporting the interim government, and the efforts to ensure a democratic transition, have led to speculation that the U.S. might have been trying to influence the direction of Bangladesh's political future. The idea was to prevent the country from falling into China's orbit and instead align it more closely with Western interests. The crisis in Bangladesh in 2024 was not just a national issue, it became a battleground of international influence. India, with its historical ties and security concerns, had a stake in seeing Bangladesh stabilize without falling under Chinese influence. Pakistan, although less directly involved, viewed the situation as an opportunity to weaken Bangladesh's democracy and align it more with their own interests. China was deeply invested in maintaining economic dominance in the region, and the United States, through both diplomacy and intelligence efforts, was keen on ensuring that Bangladesh did not tip further into China's sphere. The involvement of global powers in Bangladesh's crisis illustrates just how deeply interwoven geopolitics has become with local politics. The stakes were high, and the resolution of the crisis was not just about the future of Bangladesh, but about the balance of power in South Asia. As the world continues to watch, the outcome of this crisis will shape the region's political landscape for years to come. Thank you for watching this analysis of the Bangladesh crisis in 2024 and the fascinating global dynamics that played a role in it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth geopolitical insights.